First off, how about the fight between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao? But I'm not here to talk about boxing, unless you want to talk about the Rocky series. I'm more than happy to talk about that. But let's talk about another one of my most anticipated movies of the year. Avengers Age of Ultron. So Avengers Age of Ultron is the second movie in the closing chapter to Marvel Phase 2, though I don't know what that makes Ant-Man since they're now saying that Ant-Man is part of Marvel Phase 2. But Age of Ultron takes place after the events of Captain America the Winter Soldier, where the Avengers infiltrate this Hydra base, where Tony Stark finds Loki's scepter. Within it, he finds the key to the Ultron program. That is a peacekeeping program. He finds the artificial intelligence within the scepter to create Ultron. But Ultron, like most artificial intelligence in films, is like, screw humans, I'm taking over the world. And now we have our movie. Now, does this movie live up to the hype? I'll say yes, but there are some stuff I gotta address. But let's talk about the good. First off, I loved this movie. Right now I'm conflicted on what I like more, the Avengers or Avengers Age of Ultron. The first half of this movie was what I expect from an Avengers film, and seeing them come together fighting beside each other was really cool. Even seeing them hang out with each other at the party trying to lift Thor's hammer was really good. To me, watching these characters interact with each other was really entertaining, and the dialogue between the characters was really good. As far as the action scenes goes, my favorite action sequence is the fight with the Hulkbuster, and holy crap, that scene was intense. Now, the second half of the movie got really deep, and it even had some philosophical moments in it. And it was all set up for future movies, which didn't feel forced. I have four main standouts within this movie. First, Ultron. Now, some people have problems with Ultron, because they marketed the film like Ultron, he was going to be this big, menacing, scary robot that would give you nightmares, but then when you actually watch the movie, he's actually more funny than the trailers have made him out to be. But honestly, I didn't really have a problem with him, because you also gotta think, Ultron, he is of Tony Stark, so he's gonna have that Tony Stark witty humor in him, but more sadistic, so he's gonna have that sadistic humor within him. But I liked it, nonetheless. Now, Ultron, he's not the best villain that Marvel has had, but I'd say he's up there. He's up there with Loki. He's a close second to Loki. Vision, I don't think it's a spoiler because Vision, he has his own poster, but Vision, he is in the movie. I was cautiously optimistic of how they would handle Vision, but when you see the movie, I absolutely loved it, and you're gonna love it too. And what they did with him in this movie was magnificent. And that credit goes to Paul Bettany, who played Jarvis in the beginning, but now he is the Vision. And that credit goes to Paul Bettany, who played Jarvis in the beginning, but now he is the Vision. Paul Bettany was the perfect person to play Vision. Hawkeye, I was really impressed with how they handled Hawkeye in this movie. They gave him more development in this movie than they did in the first film. And I guess it's because, most people would agree that Loki, he got the short end of the stick in the first movie. So they had to give Loki the full treatment he deserved. And they did. They gave Loki the development. Loki had a lot more development in this film. I'd say this is the best Loki film in this movie, and he had one of my favorite scenes within the movie. It's the scene where he's talking to the Scarlet Witch, and I don't think I'll be spoiling this either because, it's partly in the trailer too, but it's the scene where he's like, you walk out that door, you're an Avenger, and he has this little speech that goes with it, and by the end you're like, yeah, Hawkeye, that's why you're awesome. And speaking of Scarlet Witch is the fourth person that stands out to me in this film. Now, let's talk about Quicksilver real quick. First off, you should know, nothing's really going to replace the Quicksilver from X-Men Days of Future Past. But Aaron Taylor Johnson as Quicksilver in this movie, I'd say for what he was given in the movie, he was fine in. But I did feel he got kind of sidelined in this movie. But his sister, Scarlet Witch, played by Elizabeth Olsen, I'd say she was more relevant in this movie than he was. And I absolutely loved her in this movie. Like, she was part of the plot device to bring Ultron along in this movie. But the twins as a whole, I liked them a lot in this movie. And they were great additions to the Avengers. The relationship between Black Widow and Bruce Banner in this movie, I know that's the one where everyone was up in arms about. But once you actually see within the context of this movie, it made sense. And even though, I have a lot of questions like, what does this mean for Betty Ross from The Incredible Hulk? I absolutely don't know. But as for Natasha Romanoff and Bruce Banner in this movie, I'd say this was pretty much the right move to go. But what happens at the end, I'd say it pretty much sets it up right, and I don't know where they're gonna go with it. But I think it made sense that Black Widow and Bruce Banner hooked up in this movie because she told him in the movie, like, all my friends are fighters, and what she meant was you're totally different from anyone else that I would date or would hook up with, and that makes sense for her. To be honest, my only two gripes within this movie is the runtime, and I'm not saying it's too long. I'm just saying there were parts in this movie where it felt choppy. Like there's this one sequence in the movie where Thor he goes on a side quest, and watching it in the movie is like that could have been polished up a little bit. But Joss Whedon, he has said that the movie was over 3 hours long, and he's going to release a 3 hour cut when it comes out on Blu-ray and DVD, which I'm really excited to see. Because once I see that, I will know what was cut out, and I can predict what should have stayed and what should have been cut out. And the only other gripe that most people have, and why people say that they like the first Avengers more than this film, that the magic from the first film is gone, in which the first film, it has never been done before. You've seen all these characters interact with each other. And as opposed to seeing it the second time, it's like, I've seen this before. But nonetheless, this was still an awesome movie. So in conclusion, I absolutely loved Age of Ultron. I'd say, despite some minor flaws with this movie, it still exceeded all my expectations. This was a great closing chapter to Marvel Phase 2. It was great seeing all these characters together again. I'm excited to see what they do with the future movies that's coming up, because they did do some minor things to set up Civil War, the Infinity Wars, Thor Ragnarok, and even Black Panther. But as for Age of Ultron, I will give the Avengers Age of Ultron an A+ for full price. We'll do a spoiler review to go in depth about what I liked and some other stuff that I didn't like about this movie. That's it for the day. You like what you see? Subscribe to this channel, subscribe to my other channel. The links are in the description below. And be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, and Instagram. Peace.